Okay, hi, I'm Vanessa Wallace from Crystal Clear Coaching, and I'm here with James Crick, who today is going to have a little chat with me about mental health. So would you like to introduce yourself, James, and tell me a little bit about you and what you're about?
So I'm James, and I was born and raised in Northampton, but I was diagnosed with depression early 2014, I believe, in which I had suffered quite a long time prior to that with low mood and various other things that had caused me to kind of go to the doctor. Sadly, when I was diagnosed with depression, it was actually a misdiagnosis. So I was actually supposed to be diagnosed with bipolar. So then I was correctly diagnosed in 2017, and I work every day to try and fight the stigma of mental health.
Great, thank you, and thank you for coming and doing this interview with me. So tell us a little bit about your diagnosis and how that impacts you, and also that, you know, about that journey from having the wrong diagnosis through to the right diagnosis. I mean, how was that for you?
It was hard work, because when I was misdiagnosed with depression, I was put onto various different antidepressants, and done various different kind of counselling. But something didn't feel right when I was diagnosed. Something still didn't feel as if things were okay. So I kept pushing back at the NHS, and eventually I got an appointment with a psychiatrist who correctly diagnosed me with bipolar and then gave me the correct kind of medication. Because of being diagnosed with depression, they'd given me antidepressants, whereas what I needed were antipsychotics for bipolar. It was a very, very tough few years, because there's nothing worse than not knowing what's going on. And although I had suspicions it wasn't depression, I didn't know what it was. So it was very, very tough.
So if you don't mind saying, because I know a lot of people who will be watching this, you know, are probably maybe struggling with mental health themselves. I mean, how did it affect you? How does it affect you? I mean, I know you've got the right medication now, but during that period where you were on the wrong medication, you know, didn't know what was going on, how was your mental health impacting you on a daily basis?
Most days I couldn't get out of bed. I was crying. I was very, very, very upset most days, because it felt as if the world was on top of me. It felt like I had no control over what was going on. I attempted a few times to take my own life, which was really, really horrific for me and my family. And I was put into hospital care over that period, because I didn't know what it was. It was very, very difficult to get the correct help, because it's like going to the doctors and thinking you've got a broken leg when actually you've got a broken arm. Like, it's very, very, very difficult to kind of get through, because you don't know what's going on. And mental health is very hard to get through it, and anyone that's been through it will know just how difficult every single day is. I mean, there were days where I would get up in the morning and be okay and go to uni and do that. There were days where I was hiding under my covers, and there were days where I would speak to people, and there were days where I would hide away from the world. Now, the problem that I had with bipolar was depression is very much you're in low and you're sad. But with bipolar, my moods were all over the place. So it was very hard to manage. So some days I'd be laughing for no reason, and then other days I'd be crying for no reason. It was a very, very weird time, a very scary and weird time, but it when I finally got that diagnosis, it felt like the world was kind of released from me and things were going to start to get better.
Okay, so you got the diagnosis. So it sounds like there was a sense of relief then. But
yeah,
when you got that diagnosis, did you get help of any sort, other help other than the medication?
So when I got the diagnosis, I was put through cognitive behavioural therapy. I was put through, there was another one that I was put through, another kind of therapy, neither of which worked for me. The medication was the thing that worked for me. And even to this day, the dosages have changed, but even to this day, I'm on the same medication as I was when I was diagnosed with bipolar.
So, because I've just done a survey with lots of people, and because obviously we were talking about this before we started the actual interview, that there's a lot of men out there with mental health problems, and I know for a fact there'll be a lot of people watching this video who are struggling with mental health problems, and some of the answers I got back around what people felt helped them. So, we've had going to the GP, we've had counselling, we've had friendship and family as well. I mean, is that been your experience, or do you think there was other things that helped you?
One of the biggest things that helped me was actually, and people say, don't look up your symptoms online. Now, I know that. However, one of the biggest thing that helped me the most was going online and looking at blogs and vlogs and YouTube and motivational. I mean, here now I have a motivational wall in front of me, which helps me. So a lot of those things as well, and online especially, places like Mind, Time for Change, whatever ones. You get loads and loads of mental health charities who post some incredible stuff. And then you've also got the big one, which I used quite often, was the Samaritans.
Yeah.
You phone up them 24 hours a day, and they really, really do support. The GP was great. The help from the NHS was amazing. However, it took time.
Yeah.
Waiting times was crazy. It was a long, long time. I was waiting 3 or 4 months before I even got any sort of help. So in that time, you need something else to keep you going. And I'm a big advocate for talking to your family and your friends. However, sometimes they don't understand. And sometimes you may get bad reactions from people. I mean, I can now sit here knowing that it's happened, but I lost lots and lots of friendships during those times because I was really low and I would push people away. Luckily now I've managed to kind of get those friendships back, because when you're kind of out of the darkness, you start to realize what you've done, you adjust yourself. But yeah, blogs and YouTube are amazing for it, because that's people like you and me. That's people that have experienced it, writing about it or videoing about it. So that's just a really good resource.
Yeah. And you do stuff on YouTube as well?
Yeah, I do. YouTube, I write on a blog. I do a bit of work I do Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that, Instagram, with all these kind of motivational stuff. But I also do a lot with radio and BBC and places like that you would see every day, kind of thing.
Yeah. So if you can send me some links to your stuff, I think I've already got some of them, but I can post those underneath this video for anybody who's interested to tap into what you've got to say and what, the stuff that you've done. But I think that's just really great advice there, James, for people to actually be their own, not their own doctors, but advocate for themselves and have a look around, because there is so much stuff online. There is so many groups available. There is the Samaritans, there is Mind, there is a lot of things available, and also to not be afraid to look up kind of what's going on for you and how you're feeling, and look at what it might be, because it sounds like that gave you a lot of comfort actually, to actually know, oh, actually I've got a reason for this. This is because I have this mental health condition.
Yeah, I mean, mental health is really difficult. All of the conditions that you may have can be horrific, but the important thing to remember is it's like a season. And what I mean by that is you will come out the other end and you will be okay again, and one day you will wake up and you will feel okay. Now, one thing I had to accept pretty early on was there is no cure for bipolar. There's ways to make it work and ways to kind of feel better. There's no cure, but the way I think of that is, all right, well, it's part of me. It's part of who I am, but I will not let it control me. So on the days where I lay in bed and I don't want to get up, those are the days that I get up and go and do something. Because if I stay in bed, then I'm allowing that thing to win. And I don't like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so much content online, and so much help. There's thousands and thousands of websites in which you will be able to find help. And there's TV programs and music and things like that. All these different things people will use differently, and some people will find counselling helpful, some will find medication. Like, it really is trial and error.
Yeah.
And with my diagnosis, before I was diagnosed with bipolar, when I was on depression, it took me 10 different antidepressants. I went through 10 different dosages of different medication to try and get me to a stable thing. It didn't work because I had the wrong condition, and then other things came in. But it's just so important to keep going. And I will say it so many times because it's so important. But get up every day, keep working, and move forward, because the only other option is for you to stop. And if you stop, you're allowing it to win. Yeah. And I'm very selfish. I don't like other things winning. I want to win myself. So I will push myself to get out of bed, and I will push myself to do interviews like this. Now, it's weird that I'm so open, people say. Well, the reason I'm open is, how can I expect people to get through it and people to change their lives if I can't even talk about it? So I am fully open. People can ask me anything and I will be 100% honest with them about mental health, because it's so silly, the stigma around it, and it drives me it makes me really angry and mad, because why should there be stigma? Why should I get treated differently because I've got a mental health condition? I shouldn't. You wouldn't do it if I had a broken leg. So don't do it because I've got mental health. Yeah. And luckily, I've got a very, very supportive network of people who understand that. So that's really good as well. And my family are amazing. They're very, very supportive. And most people will be if you're honest with them. The stigma really only exists externally from people that can't see how it's affecting you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, what would you say to someone, because you spoke about just keep going. I mean, was there anything that, I mean, you mentioned family, but what helped you to keep going? Because that's really tough to just get up and push through. And I mean, was there anything that helped you? Is there anything you could suggest people, as someone who's listening to this and they're struggling to keep going? What would you suggest?
When you think about kind of depression and mental health, you have only got two options, really. You keep going and you get on with your life, or you don't, and sadly you choose to take your own life. Now, one of the things that I was always taught is we shouldn't remove the take your own life, because people if you're told not to do something, you want to do it more. That's just obviously the brain. But the thing that got me through was the idea that if I don't get up and I don't carry on, I am going to lose this battle. And the thing, I guess the practical bit of advice I've got for people is you've got to find your motivation, and your motivation will probably be different to mine. So my motivation is I didn't want to upset my family. I didn't want to upset my friends. That's how it kind of was there first. But I use stuff like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all these platforms which are used for horrific things at times. So why not use it for good? I mean, I know that there's groups on Facebook, and I'm a member of a few as well, which help people and kind of get people through it and build up a connection and a network. There is nothing to be embarrassed about. Absolutely nothing. Stuff that helped me was pictures of family and friends in your room. Have a kind of safe area in your house which has like memories and things like that. Just try and fill your life with positivity, and there's absolutely no issue if people are affecting you, and if there's friends and family that are causing you to feel this way. At times you may need to decide to get rid, and that's horrible, but if they're making you feel this way, then there may be times you have to. Luckily, as I say, I didn't have the issue with family, but I did have issue with friends, and I made some pretty hard decisions. But I think if I can get through it, then you can get through it. That's what I think, anyway.
Yeah. And I love those suggestions, James, and finding your motivation, and that being different for everybody, because there will be a motivation. It's just it's finding it, isn't it? I mean, for me, I was an addict, and my motivation was in the fact that I didn't want my kids, to grow up with an addict as a mum, but I couldn't do it for myself. I had to do it for them to start off with. So, I think that's really, really great and true, but also the positivity, surrounding yourself with positivity. I like to call it kind of self-care, but just like having, motivational quotes, that safe space, just giving yourself that nurture and care that you actually really need, stuff for you.
And you deserve. That's the important thing. It's not just that you kind of need it, it's that you deserve it. You deserve to have that happiness.
Yeah.
One of my biggest motivations was, I can't wait, at the moment I'm not, but I can't wait to be a dad. And I didn't want, similar to you, I didn't want my kids, eventually my children that I will have at some point, I didn't want them to have to go through it. And also, to a bigger extent, why I talk about it and why I'm open about it is I don't want my kids to grow up in a world where they can't be open about their mental health. I want the world to be so that if they have an issue, they can get up, they can go and see someone, and the issue be solved. The problem that we have with mental health is someone feels low, so then they try and get help, and then they get pushed to another department, then another, then the NHS does something silly, because at times the NHS is obviously very, very full, so it's quite difficult. And while they're getting pushed to these different departments, they're sat there going, well, is it really worth it? Yes. So the idea that a person and a child can grow up in a world where they can't be open about who they are and about what they're thinking and what they're feeling, that is what keeps me up at night. That's what scares me about the world, because I follow the mantra that I've got to be open. I've just got to be open about it, because I can't expect my children, my family to be open if I'm not going to be open. So it's about finding that motivation. Kids is a good one, family, friends. You want to grow up to be a fireman. Like, it really is whatever you want, and you can build that with various tools, like the motivational wall, the Instagram that you follow, the person you talk to. I mean, I spoke to a friend. I met this girl a few years ago, and one of the things she did every day, she would text me at the end of the day going, "Hi James, what did you do today that made you proud?" And that is what you need more of in the world. I mean, now turn out to be a very close friend. So it's really good to have, I think people can be horrible, but friendships can be great as well. So I think I read a book, I think it was called The Power of Positivity, which is a brilliant book. It's all about kind of the insights into your life and choosing, because I think at points it is about choosing to be positive. Oh, this has happened to me, so what can I do to make myself feel better? All about that. It's a weird world where we're in, where people are still feeling like they can't talk, and I will continue to fight for the ability for people to open up and talk to each other.
Yeah. And what I love as well, James, is that power of possibility, because like listening to you speaking and talking about those dark days when you couldn't get out of bed, you know, and then the comparison now of what you're doing today and who you are today, there's a power in that. There's a power in that anything is possible, but it does take work. It takes action, you know, it takes pushing through each day, you know, which isn't easy, but people like you can give that inspiration, that hope to people that actually, yeah, if James, like you just said, if James can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was to say my life was in a hopeless state. I actually didn't see or believe that I could get out of the situation I was in. I thought I was going to die like that. And mine would have been a slow death. It wouldn't have been a suicide. It would have been a slow killing myself with the drugs that I was taking. And I didn't, you know, by seeing other people who had got through, and it was, you know, they had put down drugs, they had started to recover, I too thought, oh, actually I can do this as well. And that's why, you know, the message of, yeah, you know, of other people sharing their experience is so important. You know, it just really is. But one of the things that came out of the survey that I've done recently was that people felt embarrassed and ashamed, you know, or they felt, you know, stupid that they had, or they felt inefficient and weak because they had mental health issues, although they were struggling. What would you say to someone who feels embarrassed about this, you know, having that struggle?
Oh, wow. The thing that I would continue to say to those people is there is absolutely no embarrassment whatsoever. At the end of the day, you're not weak because you're admitting to having a problem. You'd be more weak if you were hiding it. That's always my kind of idea, is that if you're standing up and you're saying, yeah, I have a problem, that makes you incredibly strong. And that's inspiring, because what I always said with what I do is, it's not about, for me, it's not about helping loads and loads of people and having a number list. It's about helping one person. If I help one person to go and get help from a doctor, then I've done what I want, because every life is very, very important. And one thing that happened to me a few years ago was I was in Lincoln, because that's where I went to uni. And I'd walked, I don't know whether you got to know Lincoln, but quite close. Well, it's still quite a walk. It's a place called Newark. I'd walked from Lincoln to Newark, and I'd gone to the train station, and I was sat on the side of the train line, about to jump in front of the next train that came through. All of a sudden, I felt a hand on my shoulder, and this person was there, and they were just like, don't do it, don't commit, like, you can get through it, it's going to be okay, I love you, that sort of stuff. Eventually, that person managed to get me off of the train line and back onto the platform. And what was very strange about that was, the next thing I know, the police had come, may have arrived to speak to me. And I was like, oh, where's that person? No one knew that person. That person was not ever there. So for me, I take that as faith. So I believe that's potentially God. But other people are saying, well, that's just your mind telling you that you don't want to commit suicide. And that is so powerful. So the police were like, yeah, there's no one there. There was never anyone there. And that is the thing that I always say when people want to end their life and want to commit suicide, is that it's the power. It is so powerful, and you are so strong if you stop yourself from doing it. If you do it and you go through with it and then sadly you pass away, you're still very strong because you've lived the life. But I do want to get to a stage where no one ever does it, because I think it's horrific. I think that person's lost their life. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. That is horrible. Yes. So but there is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of when you talk. Just look at me. I'm not ashamed of my mental health. I wake up every day and I'm very open. People talk to me, people ask me questions. I tell them the absolute detail that they need. That's how you need to get. And that's what you need to do. It is so hard, mental health. But if you can get through it, it's brilliant, because you've lived it. You've lived your life of however long with this condition, and you've come out the other end. And that is brilliant, and that is so strong, and there is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. And I think the problem we have is we have massive issues with social media and things like that. So even from a young child, it's seen as being bad by opening up. But I don't like that at all. If you're strong enough to be open about how you're feeling, then you are amazing.
Yeah. And you're amazing, James, because that story you just told me there, that, you know, account of your real experience was so real and so true. And I feel that was a power of strength, you know, for you to share that with us here on this video. And also, I mean, just say goosebumps down my back, you know, because I have a similar story, which I'm not going to say now, but about, you know, just an intervention from something that you just didn't know what it was. And I think the power in that is that we're all supposed to be here, you know, but there is a purpose for all of us in this life. And, you know, I honestly believe that you're here because you've got a story. You can say, you know, you've got something that will save other people and that people can get inspiration from. And that's powerful and that is strong. And, you know, the message in that is that it's not a weakness, you know, that you are, by talking about that, you are being strong, by being open. That is a massive strength. And I do think there's a lot of cultural stuff, you know, things from childhood. There's the man kind of, you know, man up sort of thing that goes on, you know, and don't talk about your feelings. But it's a strength because it's a part of you. It's the truth, isn't it? And why not the truth?
Exactly. And one thing I always say, and with this is, I'm a young lad. I use Tinder, but even in my Tinder profile, the first time I ever talk to anyone, it says that I've got bipolar. Because I don't want anyone to get through the conversation. I've had it. We make friends, you make more friends, whatever you do, a few months down the line, you tell them and then they walk away. I'm not about that. I tell them straight away, friendships, anybody, I will always tell people. Now, luckily, with what I do online, a lot of people now know my story, so I don't have to explain it every time.
Yeah.
Because it's difficult. It's not kind of an easy thing to have to tell people. But for me, it's all about, well, if I can tell people, I can help people, so why would I not?
Yeah.
So yeah, but that story about just that person being there, it's just so strong and so raw, those feelings. And I was actually going to end my life in that situation, and something stopped me. It's up to you, whatever you believe, faith or not, it is still very powerful, and it's part of my journey. It's all about having a journey, and with mental health you do have a journey. You have the moment that you're seeing a doctor, then psychiatrist, and then it's a long story. And if you'd have spoken to me when I was first diagnosed, I wouldn't be this open. Not at all. I wasn't. I was scared. But through experience and through life, I've managed to kind of adapt and move forward with what I do. And the important thing, and this is so important, is I work, I see friends, I do everything that a normal person would do. And I've got bipolar. So if I can do it, you can do it, and everyone can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much, James. It's a really, really powerful message. I'm so glad that you are here today to share this. And, you know, if you're somebody watching this video and, you know, perhaps you can be the one who can get inspiration from this and, you know, just push yourself just a little bit to get through, you know, to understand that life, it does get better. You know, things can change. It never stays. My mother always used to say, this too shall pass. She had mental health issues. She had depression for many, many years, and that kept her going a lot of the time. But, you know, it's just thank you so much for coming on here today and sharing, you know, your story and everything. And, you know, as I say, if you're listening to this and you can get inspiration from James, you know, just take some of his words and just you get some help, go to your GP, you know, all the things we spoke about, positivity, you know, just give it a go and keep going, because things can get better. So, you know, thank you again, James. That was really inspirational. And I'm going to post up underneath this video some links to your YouTube channel and I think your Facebook page as well, anything else that you give me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you. Take care.